because if I may,
The Honorable Zubiri is recognized for his interjection.
permission of Senator Pian. A senator, Pian, Risa, and of course Senator Pian, was also raised hand. Yeah, there are a lot of people are actually, they have a lot of cases, but many of them are harassment cases. So we just want to avoid also people file cases of harassment. Just to harass a particular individual, and that individual is a high-risk individual, like a politician, or he's involved in the banking operations, or he's involved in finances, he's involved is a lawyer. I know a lot of lawyers are pending criminal cases filed by losing opposite sides. So they'll not be able to avail of the law if we put a very strict disqualification if there's a pending case. So yun lang I'd like to point out also. Tama naman si Senator Bato, if it is a case maybe concerning murder, kidnapping,
Heinous crimes, Mr. President.
heinous crimes,
I can go with that.
trafficking of men and women and children, and things like that. Pwede po yan. Pero yung simple, baka simple fraud or whatever na pending pa naman, maraming nagpapile, maraming mga congressmen pinailan. I know a case of a congressman whose father filed a case against him because he supposedly had taken over the business of the father, but apparently it's just it is a family spat, and then the charges have all been dropped. But at that point in time, the person will lose his opportunity to be able to defend himself with a firearm. So yun lamang po, if there's a compromise, baka we can limit it to heinous crime.
Heinous crimes, Mr. President.
Oo.
I am okay with heinous crimes.
Can I make my interjection with the permission of
Senator Cayetano, with the permission of Senators hontiveros and Zubiri, may proceed with their interjection.
Thank you. No, I just like to add to this discussion, no, because I know this is a very important provision, and we're trying to balance the right of innocent persons who want to avail of this privilege. I agree with Senator Risa that it is a privilege. So I'd like to ask His Honor's thoughts on the sponsor's thoughts on persons who have been charged with violent crimes. Like, it may not be heinous, but what if it is an act of violence, domestic violence? And in many cases, violence occur in their own home by their own partner. So the incident may not include the use of a firearm, pero may violence. Like, nananakit na siya. Antayin pa ba natin na baril na yung itutok sa kanya? If that's coming from a female perspective, I totally understand. I hate it when people are being blackmailed or they are going to be taken advantage of and be prevented from legally carrying arms. Pero valid din naman yung concerns ng mga kababaihan at pamilya na there is somebody in the home that is licensed to carry firearms, tapos violent, meron na siyang pinakitang violent action. Paano kaya natin yun mabibigyan ng protection?
Your Honor, the case being cited by Senator Pia Cayetano can very well be addressed by the other requirements in the availing of the permit to carry firearms outside of residence. Like for example, pag may history siya ng violence, kung magpaparecord sa police station yung kanyang asawa, so meron na siyang blatter doon sa stasyon.
Okay, yes.
So one of the requirements for PTC4 is police clearance.
Okay.
So pag meron siyang record doon, hindi siya makakuha siya ng police clearance, pero may note doon na may blatter siya dito of violence.
And then what happens is that
hindi siya ma-approve. Hindi siya mabigyan ng
because of that.
Because of that.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. President.
Yes,
kasi
because
yun yung protection ng pamilya na hindi basta-basta Alam niyo naman, you know what, that's the story I'm concerned about, di ba, na nagyayabang pa na may baril ako, ganon. So, okay, I'm okay with that. I wanna get the opinion of my female colleague if that sounds, it sounds reasonable naman na.
It sounds more than reasonable, Mr. President.
May the chair-
I thank my kabaro for...
May the chair suggest, having heard the opinions of our colleagues, can we just place in the section, Your Honor, Senator Bato, that the pendency of a criminal case will not automatically disqualify an applicant? unless disqualified either by order of the court
Yes.
or by relevant regulations that may be issued to address the changing needs of the times. So, ang sinasabi natin sa provision, kasi sa nakalagay dito, shall not be disqualified. Anyone with a pending case shall not be automatically disqualified
I accept, Mr. President.
unless so ordered by a court of competent jurisdiction or by regulations.
And regulation means,
Sa IRR, pag may policy yung presidente, yung chief PNP na, alam mo, dumadami yung mga gantong krimen, pagbawal, mag-stricto tayo ng ganto. Yung sinasabi niyo pong pag may blotter, regulation lang po yun, di ba? Na hindi siya i-issuean ng permit to carry outside of residence.
Correct.
That's only a regulation, that's not in the law. So if the law, if the regulation so limited, pero hindi siya automatic disqualification.
I agree, Mr. President.
Would that be acceptable?
Because I'll take it further, Mr. President, no. Ang madalas naming kaso in our show is yung nakainom, tapos yung mga tambay diyan na nanggugulo lang talaga sa neighborhood, like whether may baril pa yan or balisong or nothing. Ang yabang-yabang makaasta doon, 'di ba? Parang mananakit talaga. So again, that could be covered by regulation kasi mabablatter din siya eh.
Yes,
Yung
aside from
sinasabi niyo, mabablatter din yun eh dahil nanggugulo ka sa community.
Aside from the blatter, police blatter or police clearance system, Your Honor, Mr. President, meron pa yung kaukulang background investigation. Bago ka bibigyan ng threat assessment. Kasi one of the requirements for permit to carry firearms outside the residence is for you to have a threat assessment
Okay.
coming from the PNP. Ang maggawa nito is yung intelligence group ng PNP, the Directorate for Intelligence, at kasama dyan sa kanilang gagawing threat assessment is yung background investigation sa iyo. Kung ikaw ay lasinggero, ikaw ay kilala na bully sa komunidad, lalabas yan sa report doon na galing sa intelligence, sa threat assessment na hinihingi mo, so hindi ka mabibigyan ngayon ng threat assessment dahil ay pagka-abusado ka.
Okay. Okay.
So may the chair take the liberty of proposing subject to style.
I accept, Mr. President.
The provision from line 12 after the word provided until the word jurisdiction on line 17 shall now be read as follows after deleting the same. Provided that an applicant who has a pending criminal case shall not be automatically disqualified unless ordered disqualified by a court of competent jurisdiction or prohibited by relevant laws and or regulations. Subject to style.
I accept, Mr. President.
Pero, Mr. President, if I may,
Please.
if usually, for example, there is a crime that is committed, I noticed that the PNP, through the Chief of Police or the Philippine National Police Chief, issues an order to revoke all its firearms, his or her firearms, especially when they're on the run. And there's a warrant of arrest that's issued against a certain individual and nagtatago sila. Siguro isama natin that the authority, which is the police chief, can also revoke their permit if there's a pending.
Insert yun.
Yeah.
It will be covered by relevant rules and regulations that if he is wanted by the law, if he is running from the law,
Yes.
then it can be revoked. But by regulation, because we cannot
Okay.
possibly provide for every possible scenario and situation that may arise in this provision.
Okay.
Okay.
Because, Mr. President, for example, for example, our friends in the media, maraming kaso ng mga libel yan. Just because may libel cases yan, not allowed to own firearm, kawawa din naman sila. They have to protect themselves. So this amendment of Senator Bato is actually a good amendment, so at least they'll be able to, not automatically disqualified if they have a case.
Yes,
Correct.
that will be the effect of that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if I may also just make of record,
Please.
una po salamat sa good sponsor sa partially pagbubukas muli dun sa punto, opo, na in-interpolate ko noon, dito naman sa period of amendment. Nung sinabi po nila na baka unless charged with crimes punishable by more than 20 years. I appreciate po yung effort ng good sponsor, balikan yung interpellation namin at magluwag ng kaunti. Again, I reiterate my appreciation to my fellow woman senator, Senator Pia, for bringing up that aspect of violence against women as it may be impacted by our bill. And last but not the least, salamat tabi din sa presiding officer, Senate President, for providing what may be the broadest possible retention of some of the current protections under the law by his formulation accepted by the good sponsor in relation to actions of the court, laws and regulations. So since it's no longer necessary for me to accept the amendment to my amendment of the good sponsor, then I just would like to put on record my thanks.
Thank you, Senator Pia. Senator Risa, allow the chair to dispose first of the amendment. So there is a proposed amendment to the amendment duly accepted by the author, the sponsor. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the same is hereby approved. Senator Cayetano.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, I may have a proposed amendment, but it's still a clarificatory question first. Still on section 2, but on the first part, I note that it refers to a crime that is punishable with a penalty of more than 2 years, no? So I direct my question to the lawyers in the Senate Hall and also our secretariat who help us with the language. Ano ba yung rule natin? Are we trying to, this is a special law, so we go by years. We will not follow the usual standard in the revised penal code where we define arresto mayor, arresto menor, prison mayor. Ano bang rule natin? Sana may consistency tayo para standardize ang lawmaking natin. I don't really care. It can still be within that time frame, but for form.
Given the existence of special laws which provide for penalties not following those provided for in the revised penal code, usually
They
what I've
usually
seen
go by years,
is they go
no?
by years and they just go to the corresponding penalty imposed by the court, which specifies the years of arresto mayor or prison correccional in the decision convicting an accused.
Okay.
Diba range of 6
Yeah.
to 12 years?
Yeah.
The years are specified. But the more relevant question would be why 2 years? Because you either go by probationable or non-probationable. Probationable meaning lighter crimes or offenses. Non-probationable meaning more serious crimes and offenses.
That's my second question. Kasi pinag-isipan naman yata nung mga predecessor natin ng mahaba yung below 6 months, di ba? Tapos 6 months to 6 years, tapos 6 years to 12 years, 12 years to 20 years. So sana may relevance itong 2 years. Ano ba yung mga crimes na eksakto sa 2 years? Dapat alam natin yun.
May I throw the question at Senator Zubiri and De La Rosa, who are the
Proponent.
movers of this bill. Again, 6 years, below 6 years is probationable. If you're a first-time offender, not a recidivist, not a habitual delinquent, you can apply for probation. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman serious offense to. Hindi mo kailangan makulong, probation ka. Above 6 years, you're not eligible for probation anymore. Now, do you want that? That can be a possible threshold,
Okay sa akin yun, Mr. President.
which is more lenient
Yes.
than 2
po sa
years.
akin. Okay po sa akin, Mr. President. I don't know the co-sponsor.
If that is the intention, to make it easier.
Yes, Mr. President, because
Di ba yun ang intention?
this 2 years is stated in the existing law, the present law. That we are amending. This is not part
Not
of
an
the
amendment.
Dati na ito.
So we can make that amendment, Mr. President. I think Senator Pia is just,
Yeah, I'm just pointing it out so that we consciously are amending what we want to amend. And if this is not a proposed amendment, we are consciously not touching it. Hindi yung parang di lang natin ginagalaw na di natin napag-isipan. Kasi if you ask me, I'll just go by the basis of the Senate President na generally, yun yung mga 6 years and below. Hindi ko kasi
minor
I don't
crime.
know off the top of my head kung ano yung pasok sa 2 years, ano yung 3, ano yung 4. Parang 6 years and below yung general ano niyan eh. Alas hihimayin talaga natin isa-isa. So if we go by the wisdom of the previous Congress that set it at 2 years, follow lang tayo. That's why I tossed it to the lawyers, no, to get their insight.
According to my expert here, Senator.
Mr. President, if we can contribute to the discussion,
6 months to 6 years.
okay, we will assume that we are recognizing. Mr. President, ito yung requirements ata that may declaration si applicant eh. That sasabihin ni applicant that I have not been convicted of a crime punishable by more than 2 years. So, dapat stricto tayo. This is a convict that we are allowing to possess firearms, Mr.
Right.
President. So let us not make it 6 years. Masyado naman. So 2 years, okay na po yun. Okay. Lesson mo, dapat nga lesson pa. Tutusin. If you're a convict, you are not allowed to own firearms. Dapat. Pero ito, parang may concession na 2 years. So that's the current state of the law, Mr. President. So I will discourage being more lenient, Mr. President, to the convict. Thank you.
We have the intention of amending this
Convict.
particular provision, Mr. President.
Thank you.